Zachrison. I'm the CEO for Strawpay, and we do micropayments with Bitcoin. So what we do is that we make it possible to make really small, quick payments using payment channels and on Bitcoin, of course. The thing is that we focus on the consumer to merchant part, where our goal is that you should be able to complete the transaction, at least the payment part, in less than a second. And we do this by introducing a third party. But the good thing is that it's not just one third party, it's a whole network of third parties. So the consumer can choose his third party and the merchant can choose his third party or parties if they want to have, and then you have clearing in between. That was back in 2010, I think. We have a common friend that introduced us to Bitcoin, and then we had a lunch meeting every week for like a couple of years, when we just every day or once a week we met discussing Bitcoin, what happened. We went to some conferences, looked at different ideas, tried to figure out something to do. This we did while we're having our old regular jobs. And then when the payment channel stuff came up, then we started to think how you should scale this and make it better. And then we figure out our system that's built on top. It's like the Bitcoin. I mean, it's you don't have to ask anyone's permissions. You can just start hacking away. That's a very nice feature. You don't have to ask a bank or something to be allowed to transfer value. You can just start coding. That's nice. So the value proposition is that you can make really small transactions and really fast, that you get them validated in less than a second, and they're small, they're fast, and they're very secure. Well, there's a couple of them. First, you have the problem with that the Bitcoin transaction, it takes time to get into the blockchain, and it's more of a general problem that since the blockchain is a common resource that everybody, all wallets really, needs to have a copy of all transactions. This makes it not too practical to have really small transaction because you have such a big fan out. It doesn't make sense that everybody in the world should see every purchase of a coffee, or a payment for like 50 cents or something. It's too expensive to put it into the blockchain when you have these small transactions. So you need to build something on top of the blockchain that will aggregate the transaction, and that's exactly what we are doing. So instead of making a Bitcoin transaction, you aggregate lots of small transactions into one final transaction that is then put into the blockchain. And we do this by using payment channels. The payment channel enables two parties, point to point, in one direction, to be able to transfer an amount of bitcoins over the payment channel. And you start by the sender has everything and the receiver has nothing, and then the sender can, at his choice, choose to send a little bit. You have the channel itself has a certain capacity which is set up in beforehand, and that's a standard Bitcoin transaction with a multi-sig address. And then the sender will then increment how much of this that will go to the receiver. So you start by having 0 to the receiver and everything back to yourself, and then you make 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%. And when you're done at some level, you can tear down the channel, and the receiver will get his part, and you will get the rest back. And there's also a time thing in it, so that if you don't do anything, you will get everything back. And we use that for initiating our system, so that it's possible to all the payments you do to different merchants will in the end be merged into just one Bitcoin transaction that goes to the payment to the blockchain. So there's no way that you can track which smaller transactions you did, because they're not visible in the blockchain. Well, of course, it's always hard to find money to fund your company. It's most venture cap and stuff and business angels, they don't know what Bitcoin is, and I think it's kind of, or if they know, they just heard it's just used for drugs and crime. So that's kind of hard. Otherwise, it's okay. They don't know. It's kind of hard because microtransaction, what we want to do is do so small amounts that you can't handle them with credit cards or something, and it's not been available ever. So it's kind of a new field, and they don't know what to do with it because they have to change their business models, and that's always hard. So we don't get too good vibes. We are talking to the newspapers because they have a problem with getting paid for the digital content, and the printed stuff, which pays for everything, is shrinking fast. So they are in a tight spot, but they are not. One problem is that when you have tried micropayments before, it's always been cumbersome. Our solution is very, very simple. You don't need to register. There's very little you need to do. It's just one pay button, pay, and we can do it because we handle small amounts. It's not that important. It's still secure, but we want to make it really simple for people to pay a small amount. Well, Changetip is one central authority. It's a centralized version. So you have to trust Changetip, and if you don't, you can't use their system. But our system is, we have an open protocol called Stroem, and then anyone can implement the Stroem protocol, and the different entities on the Stroem protocol will talk and make business agreements with each other. And if you don't like one, just choose another. So that's the big difference. It's a decentralized system. It's based on that you have a network of hubs, and these hubs, they will either attract consumers, that's wallets really, has enabled Stroem, so that has Stroem support in them for the Stroem protocol, or for merchants that choose to use Stroem as a payment method. So how it works is that the wallets will select one hub based on whatever it looks nice, or it's good marketing, or they're good guys, or I trust them, and then they will use that hub to via a Bitcoin payment channel to transfer some Bitcoin, and in receipt they will get in return they will get what we call a digital micronote, which is digitally signed by the hub that's now become an issuer of this note, and then the consumer will take this digital micronote and negotiate it over to the merchant. So it will use a digital signature to transfer the ownership from itself over to the merchant, and will send it over to the merchant in exchange for the service. Now the merchant will stack up these micronotes to some arbitrary limit, either value, or like when you have 1 Bitcoin or half a Bitcoin, or after one day or something, and they will have selected another hub that they will use to redeem. So they will, with their key, sign over all these micronotes to the redeeming hub in exchange for Bitcoin. They have a business agreement on how the payment should be done. That's not specified in the protocol how you should do it. And also they will pay a fee. Now this redeeming hub will then look at on all these nodes and see which issuers they come from, and it will redeem them at the issuer. So that's how it works. It's based on trust, but since it's a network, you can choose who you want to trust. And typically, the hubs that focus on the merchants, they want to be able to cover as many issuers as possible, because you can only accept nodes from the issuers that you have agreements with. And you can even think that you have intermediary hubs that will redeem for issuers, and then you just have to one of these middle hubs. But it's all open, and the hubs are free to make any agreement that they want. So we expect that there will pop up lots of different hubs, and they will have to talk, because it's a network effect. I mean, if everybody is connected, it's much better for the whole system. A good thing is that the redeemers, they will charge fees from the redeemer, like the merchant, and they can put different fees on different issuers according to the risk. So if it's someone they don't feel too comfortable with, they can put a higher fee on that one. And also, all this redeeming business, you could use a payment channel for doing the redeem if you come to agreements, or you can limit the risk you have by not stacking up so many micronotes, because all the micronotes you have, they're promissory notes. That is a promise to pay. And if the issuer won't pay, well, then you lose. But you can, since all of these are very small, you can control how big risk you have by just counting how much value you have, and then you make a redeem. And if they don't pay, well, then you won't do any business with them anymore, and you will not accept them. So that's how it works. Yeah, that's the payment channel stuff. We don't use the simple pay to Bitcoin address. We use a pay to multisig, and then you use the payment channels as described by Mike Hearn and Jeff Garzik. So it's a little bit more advanced than just a plain transaction. Mm-hmm. And that gives a lot of features, like you have the only risk you stand is each payment, and that's why we want to position ourselves for micropayments. So the only thing you risk is each micropayment. So we don't intend for Stroem to be used for large payments like 1 Bitcoin or something. That's too big, because you can use a regular Bitcoin transaction for this. We want to have this where you need a very fast confirmation for a small amount. So that's what we state, that it's for advanced Bitcoin usage. It's not the regular script. It's the payment channel stuff. Well, that's a tough one. I think that the low cost, probably. It depends on with the privacy stuff. It depends on how it goes. If people start exploring much more stuff in the blockchain and connecting stuff, then our system could be cool, because we merge a lot of payments, and not only for one customer. Each issuer will merge all his customers or all his wallet's payments into one. So it's impossible to say which one is unless you ask him, and they probably won't keep records. And we gone to great length that when you transact these micronotes, when you negotiate them from one point to another, you can put some payment info, which is instructions really for what it is. But it's only link by link, because the next time it will just be the hash of it. So the proof that you've done something is there, but no one can read it because you need the original text and make sure that it matches the hash. You also have this feature that since everything is signed by the public keys, you know that if a merchant have redeemed the payment, you are sure that he cannot say he hasn't, because you can get this, you can prove that you have his signature. So that's one of the nice features. But I think it's the speed, because you get very fast transaction times. You don't have to wait for any confirmation. You don't even have to wait for the peer-to-peer Bitcoin discovery mechanism. This is point to point, so it's very fast. So that's, and when Bitcoin takes on really big, you're going to have lots of transactions, and then it's going to be really hard to make small transactions, because they will not enter the blockchain without a bigger fee. So it makes it hard for small transactions. We were thinking of the problem we were trying to solve with the payment channels is that they are point to point. So a customer or a consumer don't want to have one payment channel to each merchant. I mean, if you go out on a bar run, you don't want to have a payment channel to each bar. You only want to have one, and then you need to infer a trusted third party, which you send your small transactions, which will then forward them to the right merchant. That's one way to do it with push. The problem is that you get latency, because first you need to send it to your trusted part, and that one perhaps he needs to relate to someone else that needs to relate to a third one, because all trusted parties cannot be connected to all merchants. So you need kind of a network here, and you need to discover this, and then you do this for each payment. And also you need to have a push interface to the merchant. So the merchants need to be online with a push in interface, and they need to connect this with what you are trying to. You are as a consumer, you have one session to the merchant, and then you get to push from someone else, and you need to fix that together. So we thought, let's turn this around. So what you do is that you buy this promissory note, which is a value in itself. The actual bytes are worth something, and you do this with the digital signatures. You do this negotiation, and you send it over to the merchant. Since you already have a connection to the merchant, you use the same channel, and you send it over, and that's very fast, because it's just you buy it from your hub, and you send it to the merchant. That's how we can do this in less than a second. It's two web calls. It's point to point. It's small data. That's why it's so fast. And then the clearing stuff, that's not so time critical, because merchants are businesses, and they are used to taking risks with their suppliers and stuff. And they if they make a micro transaction for like 10 cents, they don't need the 10 cents immediately. They can stack it up, and then they get paid once a day or something. That's fine, because they're business, and the business operate that way. And also businesses are used to working with trust, because you buy things from a supplier, you get an invoice, and you pay it afterwards. The whole business scene is built on that way. So it's important here to point out that Stroem is not a solution for general Bitcoin things. Bitcoin is great as Bitcoin, but for consumer merchant, small payments where you want to have fast transaction times, then it's good. But you have the fundamental problem to solve regarding Bitcoins is that you need to aggregate small transactions into larger ones that you can send more seldom. Mm-hmm. That's what you need to solve. Anything that goes in the blockchain will take time and will cost a lot of resources. Well, we see that that currently the blockchain can handle like 7 transactions a second. That's about it. You can start changing the block size and stuff, but you might get high. Well, you will get higher, but you need to get everything. You need to get lots of people to cooperate to get this working. All the miners, all the consumers, all the software. Everybody has to agree, and we will of course get the number of transactions that the blockchain can handle will increase, but not fast enough. And it goes back to this, that it's not practical to have a record of all small transactions in the blockchain. It's going to be too much. You don't need to have all single newspaper purchases like 10 cents. That's too much. So you want to aggregate this and use Bitcoin for what it goes for, transfer value, but the value can't be too small. So the good thing is that we help the blockchain by aggregating transactions. So you can use Bitcoin to pay for lots of stuff, but we aggregate the transactions so we don't put so much load on the blockchain. Yeah, well, miners, they have one incentive to get as much as possible from one block. But they also want to make sure that Bitcoin works in the long run, because otherwise their operations will not be useful, right? So they want to get as much Bitcoin as possible, but they also want to make the Bitcoin network stronger, because they get the reward in Bitcoins, and Bitcoins are worth more if the system works. So there are rules today on that you should favor old output or old outputs, and you should look at fees and stuff. For colored coins, I would imagine that the value of the colored coin is much higher than the actual Bitcoin value, so you can accept a transaction fee.